6 bone-chilling live terror stories that haunt us in the dark, confirmed by light warriors. In the dead of night, when shadows stretch and whisper secrets, something unexplainable lurked within the walls of a forgotten house on the edge of town. The tales of its haunted history sent shivers down spines and made hearts race. 6 stories, all equally bone-chilling, intertwined like the roots of an old tree, bound by fear that held the town in its grip. The first story began with a lost child's innocent laughter, echoing in the grim hallways long after she vanished. People claimed they saw her at midnight, her small form flickering like a candle in the dark, beckoning the unwary to follow. One glimpse and you'd swear you saw her face. Yet, anyone who got too close found their chest tightening, breaths catching, like a warning. Then there was the mysterious light that danced in the fog one autumn evening, casting ghostly shapes on the ground. Many dared to approach, driven by an unshakable curiosity, only to turn back when a chill crept down their spines, as if the very ground beneath them whispered, "Turn around." One man, Thomas, swore he felt icy fingers brush against his neck, leaving him breathless and trembling, haunted by a presence he couldn't shake. As the tales unfolded, voices broke the silence. Those who dared to linger spoke in hushed tones, their eyes wide with fear. Every story dripped with tension, every word a thread that wove a tapestry of dread. People gathered, sharing knowing glances, caught in the brew of mystery that felt all too real, all too close. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you are enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. By now, the atmosphere was electric, each story revealing deeper layers of horror. A ghostly figure at the end of a long dark corridor, a creaking floorboard that announced someone was inside your home, a voice calling your name when no one else was there. Each account played in your mind like a film reel gone awry. Just when you thought it was safe, a shadow moved behind you, your heart skipping in your chest, wondering if you were being watched. As the last tale danced into the room, a monstrous terror that could twist your deepest fears into a living nightmare, the crowd held its collective breath. They were at the edge of a cliff, looking down into the abyss of uncertainty. What would the next chilling chapter unveil? Would they dare to uncover the mysteries lurking just beyond the veil of darkness? A question loomed, thick as the shadows themselves. Would anyone be brave enough to find out what waited for them in the night? The room hung heavy with anticipation, breaths held as if the air itself was aware of the trembling hearts inside. The swirling shadows seemed to pulse with life, urging the brave, the foolish, or perhaps just the curious to seek the truth behind the tales that haunted their town. Then, Riley, a newcomer to the group, broke the silence. She was younger than the rest, only a few years out of high school, with dark hair framing her face and eyes that sparkled with a mix of fear and bravery. "What if we go to the house?" Her voice trembled but rang with determination. It felt like a match striking in the dark, igniting something hidden in the crowd. Gasps flew across the room as others echoed the idea, fear painted vividly on their faces. "You can't be serious," muttered Sarah, clutching her stomach. What if the stories are true? But Riley's resolve only grew stronger, as if she felt the weight of all the fears spiraling around her. "We'll just look." We won't disturb anything. We can't let fear control us anymore. If we do, it'll never stop. Her words felt like a vortex, pulling everyone in, causing a ripple of unease mixed with exhilaration. Then, with the push of collective curiosity and dread, the group began to organize. Flashlights were scattered among the crowd, each a beacon of courage and trepidation, their small beams flickering like fireflies in the dark. They made plans to leave at midnight, the witching hour when shadows danced, and the air thickened with the weight of secrets. As they walked in the chill of the night, the path to the old house felt heavier with each step taken. The moon hung high above, casting an airy glow that felt more like a spotlight on their foolishness than a guiding star. The trees loomed over them, skeletal fingers curling in the wind, whispering warnings. Suddenly, a branch snapped loudly in the distance, causing hearts to race and lungs to constrict with fear. "My God, did you hear that?" Derek, a tall guy who often tried to mask his own fear with bravado, flinched. The nervous laughter that followed didn't fully disguise the tension that gripped them. "Relax," Riley urged, her voice barely above a whisper, though she seemed to carry the weight of their collective bravery. She led the way, her flashlight flickering on the warped signs that marked the boundary of the forgotten estate. The air grew noticeably cooler, sent shivers racing down their spines. When they finally stood before the house, an oppressive silence descended. It was as if the world held its breath. The wooden door hung ajar, creaking as the vines whispered ancient secrets. The facade of the house was weathered and worn, its windows like hollow eyes gazing out at them, as if judging their presence. "All right, let us go," Riley said, leading the way inside. Each step echoed in the silence, rattling against the walls that held decades of sorrow and whispers of the departed. The beam of their flashlights danced around the cavernous room, revealing flaking wallpaper and mysterious stains. Memories etched into the floor crawled into their minds, each telling stories of laughter long gone and screams that still echoed in the dark. "Do you feel it?" whispered Emily, her hand tightening on Derek's arm. An unease settled over them like a thick blanket, pressing down on their chests. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them, a resounding crack that sent spikes of panic through the group. Gasps filled the room, confusion erupting as they turned back, finding only blackness where the threshold once stood. "We're trapped," someone shrieked. "Stay calm," Riley shouted, her voice steady yet laced with urgency. "We can't panic. Let us find another way out." But as they frantically searched for an escape, the walls seemed to close in. The very air felt charged with something otherworldly, each breath burning in their lungs. Whispers rose around them, barely audible but unmistakably present, a chorus of longing, rage, sorrow. With hearts racing and arms trembling, the question lingered heavy in the air: what had they awakened in the dark? As the whispers grew louder, drowning out their thoughts, a chilling realization struck. Had it been wise to seek out the shadows, or had they just signed their fates to the specters that haunted the night? Panic coursed through the group like electricity. Each heartbeat was a countdown, a reminder of their encroaching doom. Riley glanced at her friends, their faces pale and eyes wide, trapped in a horror movie they never wanted to star in. This had gone beyond mere curiosity. Darkness had called around them, tightening. "We have to find a window," said Derek, his voice shaking. "Now." He rushed toward a nearby wall, hands scrabbling at the edges of the rotted wood. Shadows flickered in the corners of their flashlights, playing tricks on their minds. Emily's breath hitched behind him, and fear wrapped itself tightly around her throat. Wait, what if it is unsafe? She implored, glancing toward the kitchen door, but the whispers were growing louder, drowning her out. It was as if the house itself was responding to their fear, communicating in a language lost to time. The air thickened, charged with something dark and indefinable. Nothing could be worse than staying here. Daruk shot back, fingers now tearing at splintered boards. Riley felt the hairs on her neck stand on end. "You're right, let us find a window." The words rushed out, but doubt gnawed at her insides. What if the house didn't want them to leave? They moved as one, adrenaline coursing, but the interior turned labyrinthine. Each room they entered felt like a different century, the decay whispering tales of tragedy and despair. Shadows stretched and swayed, growing eyes as they drifted past openings that seemed to want to swallow them whole. "Over here!" yelled Sarah, spotting a window at the end of a long hallway. The relief was intoxicating. Maybe hope would follow them. They sprinted down the hall, the floorboards groaning under their weight. The shadows crept closer, as if eager to snatch them away. When they reached the window, it was suddenly clear that they were too late. The glass held fast, the latch rusted shut as if the very air conspired against them. Dirk banged his fists against the frame, a desperate mantra of no. "No. No," echoed in the hall, rivaling the whispers. "What is this place?" Emily gasped, glancing over her shoulders. The shadows danced in the corners, swirling like a restless storm, feeding on their fear. Riley felt paralyzed with dread. "We have to get back to the front door." The thought felt both impossible and absurd. "No!" Sarah shouted, a bead of desperation lacing her voice. "What if whatever is in here doesn't want us to leave?" Riley's heart sunk. She didn't want to think about that. They had come in seeking thrills, ghost stories, not ghosts. "We have to stick together." "Move," she urged, though her own fear threatened to drown her voice. As they turned back into the hallway, a chilling gust swept through, extinguishing their flashlights. Pitch darkness swallowed them whole. Panic erupted, bodies slamming against one another as they scrambled for any semblance of light. "Riley! Where are you?" Dirk pleaded, the tremor in his voice like ice. "I am here. Hold on," she called out, real fear tightening her throat. Their hands brushed together in the dark, and she clung to him, pulse racing as a low growl reverberated through the walls, a deep, ugly echo that wrapped around them with malevolent glee. "What is happening?" Emily's voice trembled. "We need to," but something shifted in the darkness, a cold presence looming just beyond the edges of their fear, as if the house hungered for their souls. With timid steps, they moved deeper into the abyss, where even silence had a weight, a burden that lingered ominously. They stumbled into another room, the air thick and cloying. A sudden flash illuminated two ghostly figures, their faces twisted in anguish, staring right at them. The realization hit hard. This wasn't merely a haunting. They were ensnared in a tragic web of suffering, and it was only just beginning. As the figures began to move toward them, ethereal fingers outstretched, one question hung heavily in the stagnant air: could they escape the spell of the house, or had they stepped into a nightmare from which they would never awaken? Emily's breath quickened, wicked terror gnawing at her sanity. The ghostly figures advanced, features dancing in and out of existence, both horrifying and pitiful. Their eyes screamed of lost hope, a warning. "Run!" Dirk's voice broke the spell. the moment shattered, propelling them back into the dank corridor. Heartbeats thudded in unison, a frantic race against whatever darkness thrived in this house. They raced past the remnants of shattered furniture and peeling wallpaper, the stench of mildew wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. The whispers built, a cacophony of sorrowful cries and malevolent laughter that chased them, harmonizing with their pounding hearts. "Where will we go?" Sarah gasped, her voice cracking under the pressure of unrelenting fear. "Just keep moving," Riley shouted, her own panic bubbling beneath the surface. They turned a corner and burst into what looked like an ancient parlor, dust motes swirling in moonlight spilling through an arched window. The room was both beautiful and disturbing. Decay clung to the velvet drapes, remnants of opulence trapped in a mausoleum of memories. A mirror hung crookedly, its glass tarnished, reflecting their terror instead of their faces. But underneath the fear, something pulled at Riley. She stepped forward, entranced. There were whispers in the glass, soft and tantalizing. "Don't it is a trap." Emily's voice soared, but the words barely broke through the spell. "Look." Derek was at the far wall, teeth clenched as he pried at another window. It was covered in decay, but a sliver of hope ignited in his eyes. "Help me." Riley's heart raced as she turned back to the mirror. The shadows shifted, converging on her like predators scenting blood. Cold fingers of dread tightened around her throat. She tore her gaze away, forcing herself to move toward Derek. The window was stubborn, age sealing its fate. They pulled, grunted, and pushed, desperation fueling their efforts, but it wouldn't budge. A chilling wind gusted, forcing them back, as the whispers turned into shrieks. Something was on the verge of breaking loose, a malevolent power that had awakened. "What do we do?" Sarah whimpered, frantically glancing around. "Keep pushing," Derek yelled, determination now igniting despair. But their efforts faltered, the shadows thickening, swirling in ominous circles. There was a scream, a piercing, heart-wrenching wail that tore through their resolve. They flinched as the spectral figures from moments ago appeared again, faces twisted into contorted screams. The air crackled with pain, and Riley felt herself being pulled into a vortex of sorrow. "Fight it!" she screamed, her voice splintering as she fought against the oppressive darkness. But the shadows began to coalesce, forming a figure cloaked in darkness, a colossal silhouette of despair. The hinges of something ancient groaned. "We cannot escape what has been lost," a voice resonated, deep and hollow, ringing like a funeral bell. The figure lifted its arm towards them, shadows twisting into elongated, claw-like fingers. "Riley, do something!" Dirk shouted, panic-stricken. She shook her head, paralyzed by the fear radiating from the figure. "Listen to me," the voice echoed, a haunting melody dripping with anguish. "You must choose. Will you join us or fight the inevitable?" Riley's thoughts raced. It was a moral quagmire: join the lost souls or risk everything to escape this nightmare. As the shadow loomed closer, the earth seemed to tremble beneath them, threatening to consume. "Together," she finally shouted, grasping Derek and Emily's hands. "Together, we face this." In that moment, the whispers around them heightened, dizzying and chaotic. Energy surged, and the shadows recoiled as they stood as one against the encroaching darkness. But glimmers of doubt danced among them, sparks threatening to ignite their fears. "Are you sure?" Derek's eyes searched hers. "What if? Just trust me." And with that, They plunged forward into the heart of the storm, hearts racing against the suffocating weight of ages past. But as they charged at the figure, the air thickened, and Riley heard a soft, sickening giggle emerge from the shadows, a sound that dragged her insides into a chilling pit of horror. What awaited them on the other side? Were they truly ready to confront the darkness waiting? As the air crackled with rising energy and shadows intertwined like a tightening noose, a new truth awaited, one that might tear them apart or seal their doom. The moment they charged forward, the world exploded into light and shadow. A violent burst of energy flared around them, engulfing their senses. Riley clutched Derek and Emily tighter, feeling their life forces pulse through their hands, a fragile lifeline in the tempest swirling around them. Suddenly, the blaring shadows closed in, encasing them in a prison of swirling darkness. The ghostly figure loomed overhead, its claw-like fingers reaching out, transforming air into a thick, suffocating fog. Riley gasped, the weight of despair deepening. I can't breathe. The shadows pressed against her chest, squeezing tighter while the piercing laughter echoed from every corner of the room. You chose to fight. The voice resonated, deeper now, full of disdain. Didn't you realize? There is no escaping what is inevitable. Dirk's face twisted with alarm, his eyes wide as he faced the spectre. We won't give in, not now. We're not afraid of you. The energy around them flickered, a heartbeat pulsing with fear and defiance. But just as quickly, shadows cascaded over them, surrounding them like a rising tide. Sarah trembled, glancing at Riley, her fear mounting. What if this was all for nothing? With fear swelling in her throat, Riley's mind raced back to the whispers she'd heard. The souls they trapped. Maybe we can free them. No. Dirk shouted, desperation unraveling as he pulled at the window once more. We have to find a way out. Dirk, wait. Emily cried, but his determination was palpable, and he shoved against the rotting frame. The glass remained stubbornly sealed, mocking their efforts. The shadows stirred, their depths revealing ghastly faces, twisted and crying out. They watched helplessly, any glimmer of courage extinguished by the dread looming close. Riley felt cold sweat bead on her forehead. Unleashing their sorrow could be a risk, but doing nothing invited doom. Listen to me. Riley shouted, her voice raw with urgency. What if we give them something back? Something of ours? Maybe that is why they relinked to this place. What do you mean? Emily breathed, fear twisting her voice sharper. Riley swallowed hard, her chest clenched with dread. Fear feeds anguish. If we can show them hope just for a moment, maybe they'll help us find a way. As Riley breathed deeply, a profound stillness fell upon them, momentarily freezing the chaos. Hold on to hope. Hold on to each other. She urged, feeling the desperation igniting into something fierce. Together. Dirk gripped their hands tighter. Slowly, the energy shifted, shadows recoiling slightly as Riley poured every ounce of hope into a single thought, a powerful desire to free the souls trapped in torment. This may not just save them, but give life where only despair had reigned. One by one, the twisted faces filled the shadows, despair battling against the flickering hope Riley channeled. It was agonizing yet beautiful, like a dark ballet of agony and redemption. A pulse reverberated, then another. The room seemed to breathe, their hearts synchronized, empowerment surging through them. But just as they began to believe the tide might truly turn, the laughter morphed again, crueler than before. Fools! You dare attempt to reshape the past. In an instant, everything morphed. The air crackled with sinister energy, suffocating any glimmer of hope they had mustered. The shadows roared, a tempest of fury washing over them. Riley's breath hitched. "We have to get out, now." And as if in response to her command, the ground beneath their feet quaked violently. Time twisted, and the room warped like a funhouse mirror as reality fractured around them. A figure surged within the chaos, a haunting echo of the figure they faced before, and this time it was accompanied by a chorus of anguished cries. Riley felt herself tearing away, limbs stretching into nothingness while Derek and Emily clutching her desperately. A new power emerged, something laced with both dread and adrenaline. "Will you fight alongside us?" the shadowed figure yelled, an unexpected invitation that flickered with darkness and burning rage. And in that moment, Riley could feel the stakes rise higher than before. Could they stand against the shadows together, or would they be swallowed whole by the cries of the lost? With the air spiraling into chaos and the threads of light struggling to maintain their grip, the question loomed larger than ever: what sacrifices awaited them in this treacherous dance between light and shadow? The shadows roared louder, a deafening cacophony that drowned out everything else. Riley felt the heat of their rage wash over her like a wave, threatening to pull her under completely. She squeezed Derek and Emily's hands, grounding herself in their presence, but the darkness clawed at her mind, whispering fears she couldn't ignore. "Fight alongside us?" Derek shouted back, his voice strong yet shaky. "What kind of fight? You want us to join the darkness?" The figure appeared more human now, its features flickering like a faulty light bulb. "You seek hope, yet you tremble in fear," the shadow hissed, disappointment lacing its tone. "You cannot set the souls free without embracing the darkness within yourselves." Riley's heart pounding, she thought about their desperation, their shared quest to escape this hell. "We do want to help them," she called out, "but it doesn't mean we have to become like you." With every word, the weight of the darkness pressed harder against her chest, squeezing thoughts of doubt closer. Emily's eyes darted around, wide with panic. "Riley, what if this is wrong? What if we lose ourselves? What is the alternative?" Riley shot back, urgency crackling between them. "We either fight for those trapped or let the darkness consume us." As if to punctuate her defiance, a tremor shook the floor, and the ground beneath them cracked, revealing deep shadows that twisted like serpents. In the chaos, Riley caught a glimpse of faces twisted in fear and anguish, their mouths open in silent cries. The sight sliced through her heart like glass. "Do you hear them?" she pressed, her voice rising above the tumult. "They are screaming for help." Derek nodded, clenching his jaw. "We can't let that be their end. Not while we're here." Taking a deep breath, Riley let the fear seep into her bones, gathering it up like an army rallying for battle. "We're stronger than our fear." The shadowed figure leaned closer, eyes shifting between each of them, as if weighing their resolve. "Then prove it." it screamed, extending its long fingers, the shadows around them swirling in a dizzying dance. "Join the fight and wield the pain, or surrender to the void." The swirling mass around them ignited with dark energy, pulling at the edges of Riley's consciousness, beckoning her to step into the void, to give in. But Riley dug deep, feeling Derek's grip tightening, feeding off his determination. "We'll fight," Riley shouted. "We embrace the darkness only to defeat it." In a flash, the air around them snapped like a taut wire. Penny whooshed past her ear, the darkness unraveling into flickers of crimson, electric blue, white, and gold. Riley let out a cry as luminous energy erupted from her heart, colliding with the shadows. Light burst forth, tendrils of hope piercing the gloom like a beacon slashing through the fog. But the laughter grew, a sinister chuckle echoing like thunder. You think light can conquer shadow? Suddenly, the figures trapped within the shadows surged forward, their despair surrounding copy after copy of twisted, tormented souls, their hands reaching out for one last chance at salvation. Riley's heart broke at the sight. Stand firm, she cried, a raw determination in her voice. We can free you. Together, we can break the chains. With each heartbeat, the darkness writhed and recoiled, shadows twisting back into a vortex. But there was something new, something awakening deep within Riley and her friends. They were not just fighting their own darkness, they were battling for those lost souls, a collective fight for redemption that resonated through every fiber of their beings. Riley grasped onto this surge of power, her body coursing with energy that felt alive, vibrant, and shimmering with potential. We are stronger together, she urged, her spirit resonating, raw and unyielding. But just as they felt they were grasping victory, the specters' laugh crescendoed, engulfing them in malevolent waves. The shadows surged back around them, demanding surrender. Riley's voice wavered, but she held on, refusing to give in. What if this was a trick? What if the struggle was merely a prelude to ultimate despair? In that moment, a shocking truth set in like icy steel. It wasn't just the souls that were lost, it was them too, trapped in endless cycles of fear. Riley locked eyes with Duruk. No matter what happens, we need to trust in each other. We can't lose ourselves. The shadows danced dangerously close, and the laughter twisted through the air like a predator stalking its prey. Would they stand tall against the tide? Or would they ultimately be dragged down into the darkness where all hope lay forgotten? For Riley, the stakes had never been higher. Defiance surged through her, a flame against the storm, but she couldn't shake the feeling what lay ahead could change everything. And with that thought, she prepared for whatever was to come, a fierce determination sparking anew. What awaited them on the other side of this endless torment? Riley felt the grip of darkness tightening, every ethereal tendril pulling her closer to despair. She struggled against it, her heartbeat loud in her ears, thundering with the fury of her resolve. Just as she thought she would drown in shadows, her heart surged, providing a beacon of light that flickered defiantly against the storm. Emily, Deru, she gasped, urgency calling in her voice. We need to channel our energy. Focus on the faces, their pain weary here for them. With each declaration, the resonating power washed over her like a wave of warmth, compelling Derek and Emily to follow. They joined hands tightly, their fingers intertwining as they formed a trio, unified against the encroaching void. With newfound purpose, they drew from each other as strength. But as they concentrated, the shadows pulsed violently. The ground quaked beneath their feet, sending ripples through the darkness, causing it to vibrate with angry life. The twisted faces of the souls pressed in closer, mouths forming silent pleas that filled the air with a deafening melody of despair. She felt their pain tangling with her own. It threatened to swallow her whole. We've got to resist, Emily cried, her voice rising above the chaotic symphony. Remember what we're fighting for. Breathing deeply, Riley drew in the anguished cries. Something shifted within her. It was painful yet invigorating. Every sorrow she absorbed transformed into luminescent energy, swirling in vibrant hues that pushed against the cold dark like a tidal wave. But just then, a surge of shadows lashed out, wrapping around Emily. "No!" Derek yelled, lunging forward, but the shadows were merciless, pulling Emily out of reach. "Fight it, Emily!" Riley shouted, desperation surging in her chest. Panic swelled in that moment. The shadows were trying to claim them. One by one, with each heartbeat, Emily struggled, face twisted in concentration. "I won't let it win. I am not afraid." Her defiance rang out, bursting with raw emotion, igniting the shadows momentarily before they slithered back, more furious than before. "Together," Riley coaxed, each word igniting a flicker of hope. "We have to pull her back." Derek's eyes widened with realization, and he focused deeper, channeling whatever force within him could connect him to their friend. "Hold on, Emily. We're with you. Keep fighting." Just as their energy surged, the malicious force retaliated with a fierce gale that felt like knives tearing through flesh. Riley gasped as the wind knocked the breath from her lungs, but determination flared in her chest. They couldn't back down, not now, not when they were this close. They reached deep within themselves, finding the strength that was born of love, of friendship, and of undying hope. "Give us your light," Riley cried out, flinging her unrelenting spirit into the maelstrom. In an explosion of brilliance, colors enveloped them. Emily fought against the shadows, her spirit roaring like an unquenchable fire. And in a moment that felt both eternal and fleeting, the shadows began to waver, colors fighting for dominance. More souls emerged, faces flickering like candles in the wind, eyes wide with fear yet also birthed a flicker of hope. Riley pleaded silently, "Let us save you." But the shadows howled in anger, swallowing the light and growing menacingly. "You cannot defeat me," the figure bellowed, its voice echoing like thunder, reverberating deep in their bones. "You think you can thrive in the sun when your souls are forever stained by fear and despair?" With every ounce of willpower, Riley howled back, "We are more than our fears." Suddenly, an icy chill slipped through the air, catching Riley off guard. As if a dam had broken, the shadows rushed forward, gathering strength for one final surge. "No. We won't lose to you," Riley shouted, feeling her resolve shatter as darkness enveloped her vision. The last thing she remembered was the feeling of hands slipping away, Derek's desperate grip breaking free. A void opened wide, and she felt herself falling, screaming into darkness. But even in that cold, suffocating space, a flicker burned in the depths of her heart. What awaited them now? Would they finally break free? Or had the shadows already claimed their final victory? The silence was deafening. Riley's senses dulled, swallowed by the darkness. She felt weightless, as if suspended in an abyss, with a crushing pressure surrounding her. Fear bubbled up, clawing at her insides, threatening to consume her whole. She didn't know where she was or if she was even alive. Then, like a whisper in the night, a faint glow interrupted the shadows. It pulsed rhythmically, matching the frantic beating of her heart. "Derek? Emily?" she called, her voice faltering as dread filled the void. But there was no answer, only her own echo, mocking her. With a surge of courage, she closed her eyes, willing herself to feel. She focused on the bond they'd forged, the warmth of their friendship that had ignited a spark of hope against the tide of despair. She could almost hear Derek's reassuring voice, urging her to hold on. She concentrated, desperately summoning that flicker within her, pumping it into the darkness. "Come on. "You are not alone," she whispered to herself. Slowly, the light grew brighter, illuminating the space around her, revealing twisted shapes and ghostly figures that writhed against the edges of her awareness. They were lost souls, faces mirroring her own terror, their eyes wide with longing for liberation. She reached out to them, feeling the pain and sorrow, no, the unbearable weight of their despair. "You can fight this." Riley's voice rang out, stronger now. "We stronger together." As if in response, an echo surged from the figures, a soft chorus of voices rising to meet her as they began to resonate with her spark. They, too, found their strength within her message of hope. Their shadows quaked, fighting against the looming darkness, which tried to tighten its grip. But then she sensed it, the heart of the darkness, pulsing with malevolence. It writhed and shimmered like liquid shadow, hissing with rage. "You will not escape," it hissed, a voice so full of hatred it made her insides twist painfully. "I will escape. We will escape," Riley shouted defiantly. Drawing from the lights blossoming within the anguished souls, she felt a surge of power, a wave of determination rising within her. Suddenly, the shadows around her began to shrink, recoiling as light expanded like a sunflower blooming toward the sun. She felt the weight of despair lift, even as uncertainty crept in. "Emily Duru, you have to find me," she cried again. But there was no response. The light was bright now, and with it, visions began to swirl. Snapshots of laughter, of memories, shared moments of joy buried beneath layers of despair. An image of Emily's radiant smile flashed in front of her. Then Derek, his earnest eyes locked onto hers, filled with fierce determination. These were the connections that grounded her. In this moment, Riley understood everything. They were stronger together. She concentrated, pouring every ounce of love and hope into the light, and suddenly felt the tether between them snap back into existence. The grasp of the darkness faltered under the weight of their bond. Together, they echoed, their voices merging in a symphony of light and courage. A crack appeared in the darkness, bright and shining like a beacon of hope. With one final push, Riley willed herself to move towards that light, the tether now a blazing ribbon connecting her to the others. But as she neared, the ground beneath her trembled violently. The shadows roared in fury, clawing at her, fighting to retain their hold. Riley gritted her teeth, pushing herself forward, but the surrounding darkness clawed at her ankles, dragging her back. Panic surged in her chest. She couldn't let it win. Not now. This twisted game was far from over. And somewhere behind her, in the depths of that darkness, she heard something unearthly, a promise, a threat. "You think you can escape? I'll be waiting." With a final surge of defiance, she reached for the threshold, afraid of what awaited her on the other side, yet desperate to find out what lay in that light. Would it lead to freedom? Or a new struggle? In that moment of uncertainty, Riley knew one thing for sure: if they didn't break through together, they'd drown in the shadows forever. She took a deep breath and leaped into the light. But as the silhouettes of her friends slowly faded from view, doubts crept in. Had it been enough? Was everyone truly free from the shadows, or just shifting positions in the dark? Time would reveal the truth, but what would they face on the other side? Riley felt the light engulf her, a warm embrace that chased away the lingering currents of fear. She tumbled forward, body weightless, as if floating on waves, and darkness fell away like a discarded cloak. But just as quickly as the warmth settled into her, an icy chill snaked around her heart, annoying feeling that something was terribly off. As her feet hit the ground, she found herself standing in an airy expanse, a deserted street lit by ghostly pale lampposts that flickered like dying stars. The air was heavy, thick with anticipation. Silence hung like a shroud, and a shiver ran down her spine as she scanned for familiar faces. "Emily? Dirk?" She called out again, her voice trembling, quaking against the solid stillness. An ominous cloud rolled overhead, casting fleeting shadows against the cobbled stones. Riley narrowed her eyes, straining to see through the murky embrace that gripped the street. Just then, a flicker of movement caught her attention, a fleeting shadow darting around the corner of a dilapidated building. Her heartbeat quickened, the pulse of nerves tearing through her body. Maybe it was one of them. She took a tentative step forward, then another, trying to suppress the gnawing sense of dread that gnawed at her. The air felt sharp, biting at her skin. "Please, it has to be them," she thought fervently. Rounding the corner, Riley stumbled into a nightmarish scene. Bike tires lay strewn across the pavement, overturned, forgotten like lost hopes. Graffiti scrawled across the walls told stories of fear, each stroke of the can fueled by anguish. Her breath caught in her throat as sense and confusion tangled into one. She walked into a realm trapped between despair and reality. The shadows were thick here, bulging with malice. She could almost hear their murmurs, sinister whispers clawing at her sanity. Suddenly, out of the corner of her eye, something shifted. A figure cloaked in darkness stepped into view. Her heart pounded against her ribs, and she braced herself as the figure leaned closer, the edge of despair emanating from them like a noxious fog. "Riley," a voice hissed, twisted and warm like honey dipped in venom. "You thought you could escape. You're still bound to this place." It was the same voice that had taunted her before, an echo she couldn't shake. "No," she gasped, scrambling back, but the figure's grip tightened like a vise around her throat. Panic surged, stealing her breath. "Let me go. I won't let you keep me here." Desperation clawed at her, urging her to fight against the suffocating presence. "Did you really think you could sever the bond?" The figure sneered, their shadow stretching to create grotesque shapes on the slate ground. "You're a part of this now, Riley, a piece of the darkness itself." Just as horror enveloped her, a bright light erupted at the edge of her vision. It cascaded like a breaking dawn, shattering through the shadows like glass. Riley's heartbeat raised as she realized it was drawing closer, calling out to her. "Emily! Dirk!" She screamed, filling her lungs with hope, reaching for the light with every ounce of her being. But the shadows screamed louder, their tangled tendrils grasping for her, dragging her back into their murky clutches. Riley felt as if she were being pulled into directions, a chasm of light on one side, a tide of darkness on the other. She squeezed her eyes shut, bracing herself against the despair threatening to swallow her whole. "No, I won't give in," she cried, and just as she hurled herself toward the light once more, she heard it, a low whisper that burrowed into her consciousness, chilling her to the bone. "I am coming for you, Riley, and I will drag you down with me." The light flickered and dimmed as she sailed into its embrace, but a singular thought remained: would this light save her, or would it trap her in an everlasting dance with the darkness waiting to claim her? As she hurtled toward the unknown, the thread of her fate hung in the balance, teetering on the edge of hope and despair. What awaited her on the other side, where the veil between light and dark was so tenuously thin? Riley found herself suspended between two worlds, a haunting melody echoing through the air as the ballast of shadows pulsed with an unseen power. She was no longer just a girl wandering a dark house, she was a vessel caught in an eternal battle of hope versus despair, light versus shadow. Beneath her feet, the ground vibrated, and she could feel the mounting pressure of encroaching darkness. The voice of the shadow loomed once more, an icy grip tightening around her heart. "You cannot escape your fate, Riley," it hissed, its sinister undertone thick like a fog. "You rebound to this darkness." Yet as the shadows wrapped around her, a flicker of courage sparked deep within. She experienced fear and confusion, but she also found her strength in the bonds of friendship. "You're wrong," she shouted defiantly, her voice echoing against the cold walls closing in on her. "I will not be consumed by you." With every ounce of willpower, she recalled Derek and Emily. Their laughter, their dreams, their unyielding spirit. They fought together in that house, they would fight again. The round of illumination built within her, glowing with warmth, like sunlight breaking through a storm. She felt their presence intertwining with her energy, weaving a tapestry of strength. Suddenly, around her, the shadows quaked, pulling back slightly as if in response to her resolution. The figure shifted, a raw anger flaring within its depths. "You cannot face me with mere emotions," it snarled, advancing with a commanding presence. But Riley could feel that connection, that warmth igniting the very core of her being. "Together," she cried, every syllable vibrant with determination. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed, the light pulsed steadily, transforming the darkness into swaths of luminous colors. She could feel the shadows grinding down against the stones beneath her feet, howling at the presence of this hope that began to bloom. "Emily! Dear!" she called out, her voice strong, reverberating into the void. "I need you." And almost like a spell, the space shimmered, revealing fleeting glimpses of movement. Shapes darted among the shadows, weaving in and out, and Riley's heart lifted. This time, she wasn't alone. The light coalesced into a brilliant wave, bursting forth, illuminating islands of darkness that had long held sway. The shadows recoiled as the faces of the lost souls grew clearer, each one shimmering with longing, eyes wide with both fear and hope. Derek's voice broke through the chaos. "Don't let it win. Fight for all of us." His words rang out, charging through her like a spear of resolve. "I want it." Riley screamed against the encroaching murk, feeling the warmth pulsate. "I refuse to lose to you." An electrifying surge swept through her, and as she held on to Emily's laughter and Derek's strength, she realized they were all bound by a shared hope. In that instant, she understood. Hope wasn't just a flicker, it was a storm waiting to be unleashed. As if called forth, energy swirled around her, brighter and more radiant. The shadows shrieked, twisting violently as they were pulled into the storm of light. Tendrils of color danced through the air, glittering like fireflies as they began to shatter the darkness. "Together. Fight!" Riley yelled, feeling every ounce of courage swell as each worried face approached her, interwoven with desperate hope. The longer she held on to that vision, the stronger the light grew, spiraling into a vibrant cyclone of energy. "No!" the figure howled, raw fury rippling through it. But Riley pressed forward, each heartbeat stronger, more vibrant. "I believe," she declared, arms wide, channeling every ounce of her will, bringing forth the memories of friendships stamped with resilience. In that moment, the room shuddered. A radiant shockwave expanded from her, bright enough to banish shadows into oblivion. And just like that, she felt the bond snap tight, pulling the spectral essence and spiritual battle behind her as one. The air filled with echoes of laughter, the cries of souls released, swirling through the light like vibrant streams of color. A brilliant flash enveloped Riley, Derek, and Emily, blending them into a singular aura of hope that consumed all despair. "No!" echoed that hollow voice one last time as the shadows imploded. And just like that, it was all gone, the darkness dissipating into nothingness. Suddenly, the scene dissolved. The remnants of the haunted house melted into warm sunlight, pouring over Riley's face like a gentle waterfall. The weight of despair felt like a distant nightmare, now replaced with dizzying warmth and freedom. She stood in an open field, brightly lit, the sun shining high above, drawing in a gentle breeze. "Did we?" Emily's voice came soft and unsure, as both she and Derek appeared beside Riley, bewildered yet radiant. Riley felt tears prick at her eyes, a swell of joy tightening her chest. "We did it!" she exclaimed, her heart soaring. "We're free!" Derek took a deep breath, relief washing over his features. "I can't believe it is over." "But the darkness," Emily murmured, glancing back, eyes wide. "It is behind us," Riley assured, feeling the weight of concern lift from their shoulders. They stood hand in hand under the vast expanse of blue sky, a promise of new beginnings stretching before them. A sense of peace settled over the trio, the realization settling in that their bond would never be broken. Through fear, through darkness, they had found each other and illuminated a path back to hope. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, a lingering whisper floated through the air. Not of despair, but of possibilities. They had triumphed in the face of their fears and discovered the unyielding power of hope shared. Hand in hand, they stepped forward into the new dawn, knowing their greatest adventure was yet to come, and that they would face it together. Now, one last thing before you go, you need to subscribe immediately. Don't let this journey end here. Smash that like button now and let it feed the algorithm, helping us reach more brave souls like you. You absolutely must flood that comments section with your reactions. What did you think of this thrilling conclusion? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this unforgettable final. It is you who keeps these stories alive. Your support means everything. Let us keep this community thriving.